8 fastest American Corvettes of the 1970s. You won't believe the last one. In 1971, a Corvette ran the quarter mile in 13.8 seconds and left the drag strip quicker than a brand new Ferrari Daytona. By 1975, the fastest Corvette in showroom trim ran 0 to 60 in 8.1 seconds and could be outrun by a Honda motorcycle. The decade in between those two numbers is one of the most dramatic collapses in performance history, driven by government regulation, fuel crises, and an industry forced to neuter the most powerful sports car in America. But inside those dark years, 8 Corvette variants pushed back harder than anyone expected. Here is every one of them, counted down from the slowest of the fast to the one that should not have existed at all. Number 8. The 1975 L82, the last line of defense. By 1975, the Corvette was a shadow of its former self. Emission regulations had strangled compression ratios, catalytic converters had been mandated for the first time, and the base engine was now rated at a dismal 165 net horsepower. The convertible body style was discontinued entirely because Chevrolet feared it would not survive looming federal rollover protection standards, and General Motors was seriously discussing whether to cancel the Corvette program altogether. Into this environment, Chevrolet offered one slender lifeline, the L82. The L82, 350 cubic inch V8, produced 205 horsepower in 1975, a figure that sounds modest until you understand the context. Every other performance car in America was delivering comparable or lower numbers from larger engines, and the L82 was doing it with a 9-to-1 compression ratio at a time when most high-performance units had been squeezed down to 8.1 or below to survive on the low lead fuel the regulations required. The L82 ran 0 to 60 in approximately 7.0 seconds, which placed it among the quickest American production cars of its model year, despite the apparent depression of its specification. It was not fast by the standards of what Corvettes had been. It was the fastest thing with 4 wheels that a buyer could legally purchase at an American dealership that year, and that distinction mattered. Number 7. The 1978 L82 25th Anniversary Edition, speed wrapped in silver and black. 1978 was the Corvette's 25th anniversary, and Chevrolet celebrated with 2 special editions that represented the highest profile launch the model had received since the Stingray debuted in 1963. The first was a Silver Anniversary Edition with a silver and gray two-tone paint scheme. The second, and far more significant, was an Indy 500 pace car replica in black and silver, produced in 6,502 units to satisfy homologation requirements for the actual pace car that led the field at Indianapolis that year. Both wore the L82 engine, now producing 220 horsepower through a revised Rochester Quadrajet carburetor and improved exhaust flow. The power figure was a genuine improvement over 1975 and produced a quarter-mile time of approximately 15.8 seconds at 89 miles per hour. Modest by pre-regulation standards, but the best the Corvette could offer within its constraints. The pace car replica, in particular, became one of the most documented Corvettes of the decade, with dealers charging substantial premiums over list price and Motor Trend naming the Corvette Car of the Year for the first time in the model's history. The car's significance was as much cultural as mechanical. It proved that even at reduced power, the Corvette's identity remained powerful enough to generate genuine excitement from the American car-buying public. Number 6. The 1979 L82, peak of the Smog Era. The 1979 Corvette L82 represents the absolute high watermark of the emissions era performance output, before the L83 Crossfire injection would arrive in 1982. Horsepower climbed to 225 as Chevrolet refined the L82's calibration, exhaust manifolding, and intake breathing through continuous development, and the 1979 model ran 0 to 60 in approximately 6.6 seconds with the 4-speed manual transmission. Chevrolet set a production record that year with 53,807 units built, a figure that has never been surpassed in the model's history. The 1979 was also notable for adopting the twin taillights that had debuted on the pace car replica, making the Anniversary Edition's distinctive rear end a permanent feature of the Corvette's design language. Power steering and power brakes became standard across the range rather than optional extras, and the interior was substantially revised with improved ergonomics and seating support. For a driver who had come of age with the big block Corvettes of the 1960s, a 225 horsepower 1979 was a disappointment. For a driver entering the market in 1979, it was simply the fastest car they could buy. Number 5. The 1972 LT1, the last real small block of the era. The 1972 Corvette LT1 is the final expression of the high-revving, small block performance philosophy that had defined Corvette development since the mid-1960s. And its existence in 1972 was barely tolerated by the regulatory environment closing in around it. The LT1's 350 cubic inch V8 was now rated at 255 net horsepower, a significant reduction from the 330 horsepower gross rating of 1971. But the reduction was largely a function of the change in measurement standard from SAE gross to SAE net that was adopted industry-wide in 1972. Not a genuine drop in output. The engine itself was mechanically identical to its 1971 sibling. The 1972 LT1 ran the quarter mile in approximately 14.6 seconds at 100 miles per hour, with 0 to 60 arriving in around 6.0 seconds, when paired with the 4-speed close ratio manual. It was also the final year in which the ZR1 race package could be ordered around the LT1, making it the last genuine high-performance production Corvette package of its specific type. After 1972, the solid lifter, high-compression small block disappeared from the Corvette order form, not to return in comparable form until the L83 and eventually the TP1 engines of the mid-1980s. Hagerty evaluation expert Don Sherman has described the LT1 as one of the most admired Corvettes and Vette engines in history, with the character built into that engine remaining foundational to how Corvette engineers thought about performance for decades afterward. Number 4. The 1971 LT1, the year before the curtain fell. The 1971 Corvette LT1 carried 330 gross horsepower and represented the last year in which Corvette engines were rated using the traditional SAE gross measurement standard, a figure that significantly overstated output relative to the net measurements that would follow. With its 11-to-1 compression ratio in 1970 dropping to 9-to-1 in 1971, the LT1 had already absorbed one significant regulatory hit, but it remained a genuinely potent piece of machinery. Running the quarter mile in approximately 14.6 seconds at 99 miles per hour, the 1971 LT1 was quicker than virtually everything available at its price point in any country. Chevrolet also offered in 1971 the ZR2, a package that applied the same racing-focused hardware as the ZR1, but wrapped around the LS6 454 big block instead of the LT1. Only 12 ZR2 packages were ever ordered across the model year, making it even rarer than the ZR1 and one of the most obscure high-performance Corvette specifications in the entire C3 generation. Number 3. The 1971 LS6 454, 425 horsepower and a racing engine in a street car. The 1971 Chevrolet Corvette LS6 454 is the most powerful engine ever factory installed in a Corvette during the 1970s decade, and it arrived in what would turn out to be its only model year in the Corvette, making it simultaneously a peak and a finale. The LS6 454 featured aluminum heads and delivered 425 horsepower, the highest output of any engine offered in the 1970 to 1972 model years. The LS6 used the same block as the LS5, but employed domed pistons, achieving a 9-to-1 compression ratio, aluminum cylinder heads for reduced weight, and a substantially more aggressive camshaft. It was, in essence, the detuned version of the canceled 460 horsepower LS7 that had appeared in Chevrolet's 1970 literature, but was never produced for retail customers, with engines taking the best elements of that canceled engine and packaging them into something that could legally pass through the dealership. The 1971 Corvette Stingray 454 LS6 ran 0 to 60 in 5.3 seconds and covered the quarter mile in 13.8 seconds. Those numbers place it among the 10 quickest production cars on Earth in 1971, irrespective of price or country of origin. The LS6 could be paired with either the M21 or M22 4-speed manual transmission, and the ZR2 package added the full racing suspension, braking, and cooling hardware around it. After 1971, emission regulations made the LS6 impossible to continue without fundamental redesign, and it was withdrawn from the Corvette option list, never to return in that specific form. What was left was the LS4, and then, eventually, the gentler LS5 for the remainder of the decade. Number 2. The 1970 ZR1 LT1. Only 25 built, no radio, no heater, no compromise. In 1970, Chevrolet offered a package so stripped of comfort and so focused on performance that only 25 people in the entire United States were willing to pay for it. The ZR1 debuted in 1970 as a race-focused option on the C3 Corvette. For $968.95, buyers got a package built around the high-compression 370 horsepower LT1 engine, a heavy-duty M22 Rock Crusher 4-speed, upgraded cooling, suspension, and brakes, but no luxury options. The ZR1 RPO helped transform the rest of the car. Possessing the LT1 engine, the ZR1 made the M22 transmission standard, added an aluminum radiator, heavier-duty springs, shocks and sway bars, more powerful brakes, and a different fan shroud. Several options were unavailable on the ZR1, including air conditioning, a defroster, radio, and power steering. No radio, no heater, no power steering, no air conditioning. Chevrolet was not building a road car. They were building a race car that could be licensed for the street, and they were doing so with remarkable precision. The 1970 LT1 carried 11-to-1 compression, a 780 CFM Holley 4-barrel carburetor on a special aluminum intake, and the M22 Rock Crusher transmission, whose nickname came from the distinctive mechanical noise it produced under load. Motor Trend tested a 1970 LT1 Corvette in May of that year and covered the quarter mile in 14.36 seconds at 101.69 miles per hour, remarking that there is Corvette and there is Porsche. One is the best engineering effort of America, the other of Germany, and the differences in machines is not as great as the disparity in price. During the ZR1's 3-year run, only 53 were ever ordered, making the ZR1 Corvettes of the early 1970s one of the rarest small block Corvettes ever produced. The 25 built in 1970, 8 in 1971, and 20 in 1972 represent the final expression of the hardcore, race-derived small block Corvettes that had been building since the solid lifter engines of the mid-1960s. Each one is now among the most coveted C3 Corvettes in existence, commanding prices well in excess of 6 figures for documented examples in correct specification. Number 1. The 1970 LS7 454, the Corvette that was never supposed to exist. Here is the entry that should not be on this list. The 1970 Corvette LS7 was a 460 horsepower, 454 cubic inch V8 that appeared in Chevrolet's own literature, was listed in the American Motors Association specification sheets, and was advertised with a price of $3,000 over the base car. The LS7 was officially rated at 460 horsepower. However, the $3,000 more than the base price this option carried was so great that no record has been found that any were ever built for retail customers. On the small block side of things, the LT1 bumped horsepower up to 370. Almost no LS7 Corvettes were built for retail customers. The engine was eventually offered as a crate unit rather than a factory installation, partly because its 12.5-to-1 compression ratio required 103 octane racing fuel to function properly, making it entirely impractical for street use. But one LS7 Corvette was built, driven, and tested. GM did produce an LS7-equipped Corvette in December 1969 that was driven from Los Angeles to Detroit by Paul von Valkenburg, a writer from the magazine Sports Car Graphic. He stated that with a full tank, 2 aboard, and a full load of luggage, the car could still turn the standing quarter mile in 13.8 seconds with a top speed of 108 miles per hour. 13.8 seconds with 2 people and a full load of luggage. from a car that displaced 454 cubic inches and produced a claimed 460 horsepower, at a time when the fastest Corvette available to retail customers was running 14.36. The LS7 was a Corvette that Chevrolet built in December 1969 to show what was possible, then decided the public was simply not ready for it, and withdrew it before a single example reached a dealership floor. The most powerful Corvette engine of the early 1970s was the 1971 Corvette LS6 engine with 425 gross horsepower. The 1970 Corvette LS7 never existed from the factory, except it did, over time, for one journalist, on one cross-country drive, and then it was gone, leaving behind nothing but a magazine article, a specification sheet, and the knowledge that somewhere in 1969, a Corvette engineer built exactly the car they wanted to build, drove it across America, and then watched corporate reality shut the door behind them. The fastest Corvette of the 1970s was the one you could never buy.